What's up, agency owners? I'm excited for another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass. Before we get into it, I want you to do me a favor. If you're listening to, obviously you're listening to the podcast, take a screenshot, upload it to your favorite social media channel, and tag us so I can give you a shout out for listening to the show. Today, we're going to talk to an amazing agency owner across the pond over in London, because that's the only city I actually know over there. He said he was outside of it. He was trying to explain it to me. But we're going to talk about getting back to the basics and a lot of things that we're ignoring, and we're not doing for ourselves, but we're doing it for our clients. So let's get into the episode. Hey, Phil, how's it going?
Really good. Thanks, Jason. How are
Good,
you?
man. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you on. So briefly tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Phil Blackmore, and I'm one of the agency owners of Create Health, which is a specialist advertising agency that, by the name, as you can probably guess, does everything in healthcare.
Awesome. And so, in kind of pre-show, we were talking about really, getting back to the basics. And so what have you found in scaling your agency? You guys have been doing it for a while. And you were telling me a little bit beforehand about, when COVID happened, it kind of made me rethink something. So what happened? Tell us that story.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we obviously spoke, I think, about 14 months ago, and I think we felt we were doing pretty well as a business, but obviously, COVID, I think, is certainly the most testing period of time I've ever been through as an agency owner. And, as I'm sure anyone listening to this can empathize, a lot of things I didn't think I'd have to face, I have with regards to decisions on staff, services, all kinds of things. But I suppose through all the darkness, there was a real opportunity to actually reflect on what it is I'm trying to build and what it is we're trying to do as an agency. And I think one of the things I found really interesting was I've always believed that we're really good at what we do. Um, but actually we were probably guilty of hiding that by trying to come up with a clever way of explaining that to potential clients and prospects. So yeah, the pandemic and the last sort of 12 months has given me a real opportunity, I suppose, to reflect back on what is it we like doing, what is it we're respected for, and how on earth do we just kind of simplify the story and get that back out to existing clients to expand them, but also to new clients we want to work with.
Yeah, I think we all kind of fall into that trap, especially the ones of us that have been doing it for a while, right? Like we just get reactionary to everything. And then, I remember doing this when we were building, an e-commerce platform back in
Mhm.
2001. Like, clients would call and we'd be like, okay, like they're paying the bill. Let's take our foot off this. Or when we were developing a CMS system in
Yeah.
2002, like I was like,
But
we're go on.
absolutely, and I think the funny thing is, in some ways, I don't know. I think you get so obsessed with the novel, trying to come up with something new and cool that hasn't been done before. And actually, as much as that's wicked and can get you a bit of exposure, it's not the backbone of your business. It's good for that awareness, but actually, it's not what you're going to be bought for. People want a good, solid foundation and want to know that you've got the goods to back it up.
One of my favorite movies is Moneyball. Now, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I love sports stories, and
Mhm.
I like what you just explained is kind of like us getting up to bat and trying to hit a grand slam every time. And what's going to happen is we're going to strike out more than we're going to score. And why I loved Moneyball was they were like, we just need to get the right players that can get on base. I don't care if they get hit and they get on base or if they get walked or whatever it is. I just want them to get on base. And I think
Yep.
agencies really need to focus about how can we just get on base? Like stop
Yep.
overcomplicating it. So, what were some of the things that you did to make it not as complicated?
So I think we fundamentally went back and looked at, firstly, what is it that why did I set the business up in the first place? In terms of why did I my partner build what we started, and it's because we believed that in our sector creativity was massively underrepresented. In the healthcare space, it's a very safe, conservative kind of sector, as you'd expect because of the subject matter. But it's also the most emotionally rich from, I suppose, a story perspective. Health touches us all. And what I thought was interesting was that looking back at all the pitches we'd won and looking back at kind of the business historically, the one thing clients kept saying about us that they loved was just how creative we were and how we were bringing, I suppose, broader thinking into a sector that they hadn't seen before. So we went back to basics and was like, well, what's wrong with this sector? And then came up with this kind of, I suppose, positioning that I'm very pleased with, which is that creativity is the cure within healthcare. And we then, having got that basic kind of sentiment, went out and found scientists who specialize in behavioral psychology and other such areas to really help back up our belief that creativity is the cure. So, yeah, we had this really lovely line, but then we made sure it was grounded in the science. And yeah, we stripped back our services, actually got rid of certain departments so that we could focus and invest more on, I suppose, the creative and the planning side of things, which is really resonating with our clients, and the team and the energy is just so much better now.
Oh, and you probably do things a lot more efficiently too if you started stripping away some of the things. And a lot of times I find agency owners have a hard time of getting rid of some services.
Mhm.
So what was kind of the step, or like, especially if you're doing some services for legacy clients, did you just say, hey, we're not doing this anymore? Or did you just stop marketing it for new ones coming in?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest, I suppose, shocks was we turned off building tech internally. So we used to have a department that built the apps and the websites, the CMSs, all this sort of stuff, and we made really good money off it historically. But we got to that juncture where it's like you're either going to be a tech agency or you're going to be a creative agency. You can't really be both, and didn't have the, I suppose, capital to try and do both properly. So as I said, we realised that we preferred creative more, that we were better at it, so we turned off those services for tech. We still think digitally and technologically, but we've partnered with agencies that are really good in that space. So they do the build and the maintenance and all the stuff that we, quite frankly, weren't that good at. We have the upfront strategy and ideas. And yeah, and as for the clients that we had on board, and we went to great lengths to make sure that we handed them off to partners that we felt had the same values as us. So they didn't feel like we'd kind of left them high and dry. We'd done the right thing, and we felt immensely kind of cleansed and relieved that we had one less thing to focus on. As I said, creative is what we're good at, and it's what clients. What's lovely when you talk to procurement, you go in with a really niche offering of this is what we do and this is why we're great at it, which means again you get, rather than being a generalist, being that specialist really does get you higher up the list.
Well, and when you do that too, I mean, you can demand so much bigger on prices. It's kind of like if you just go see a your general doctor, and they're checking the oil and checking your temperature. They get paid so much. But if you need to have brain surgery, they're going to be getting paid so much more than someone that's a generalist. So
Absolutely.
when you started peeling back some of the services and getting rid of those, how quick? Because a lot of people listening are like, well, how quick did you start to see a change and growth and profit and also revenue?
Yeah, so I mean, it was obviously frightening to have to turn things off because, as I said, we'd made historically good money. But then when you start to turn off all the other things that you don't need to have suddenly, all the different platforms, the hosting, everything else, that actually was, unbeknown to us, costing us tons of money behind the scenes in terms of, and not necessarily being recharged back as it should be. There were a lot of clients that we weren't charging the hosting onto, silly little things that I think a pandemic certainly sharpens your eye on. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a change, it's certainly taken about 6 months for it to kind of wash through. But yeah, the last sort of 6 months have been tremendously good in comparison to the others because, yeah, we've just had more time to focus on the stuff that we enjoy doing, and because we enjoy it, we do it better.
Yeah, yeah. I almost look at it as you're climbing a mountain, and you realize the trek to the summit is really like you could die by going this one path. But if you backtrack, you can get on an easier path, and then you can get up there. eventually without little risk. And I kind of look at it as like, that's kind of what you've done is like, all right, the risky pass is going up there. And then when you start backtracking, man, this is really pretty easy, a lot easier, and now you probably see a lot faster growth too.
Well, I think it also just makes it so much easier for us thinking about staff in terms of who you're hiring. Having that clarity of focus has meant that we've been able to change culturally in our kind of our processes. Creativity is very much at the heart of everything we do. We're really clear on where the opportunities are in things like CGI now and other areas to amplify what we do creatively. So yeah, in some ways, it's just made it really, really simple for us. It's also meant, I mean, where we're based in Bristol, it's a big tech city. So we were always competing against people who could outbid us for the best talent anyway. So yeah, in some ways, it's nice not to have those kind of HR headaches either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I'm talking with our mastermind, we're always talking about recruiting, right? Because we're at levels, everyone in the mastermind's at a level where they're getting tons of business, but it's harder to keep up, and they're trying to get out of the day-to-day operations and really build the leadership team, or really transform and transform from an owner to a CEO. And it really comes down to talent. But now if you've stripped back a lot of the services, you know exactly what you need. Because a lot of times I find agencies hiring for people to do things that they have no clue on because they want to add more services.
Mhm.
And I actually think that's actually a mistake in most cases, because how can you measure someone on something you've never done?
Yeah,
Like, you're going to be a horrible manager rather than, look, I've done millions of websites. I can measure, and I know if someone's BSing me in the interview or BSing
yeah,
me for the first 6 months. Be like, you're gone in the first week.
yeah, no, absolutely. And as you said, it just, as I said, I think the thing I struggle with, probably the biggest shift in terms of becoming an owner, is the your time is so precious, and you can end up doing tasks which are not really reflective of the value that you have on the business. So yeah, the more you can do to, as I say, get back to basics, strip away the things that you think are doing you favors but really aren't, and actually just focus on the bits that you enjoy, the business is going to do so much better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has all been amazing, Phil. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the audience?
I think key thing would be, whatever your point of difference or proposition is, just make sure that it's something that really runs through the core of the business, not something that just sounds nice on a flyer or a website. As I said, creativity is something I'm very passionate on. And so, having that as a driving force through the business means that it's infectious and others pick up on it because it's coming from the top down. And I think the key thing then is to nurture it, and just make sure that it then comes back up towards you in more interesting ways as well. That's how the business will grow, through the great people that we hire.
Well, I think, the reason why it's worked for you so well is you have such passion and the belief in it versus choosing it based on, well, I think we can do this to make more money. I think the make
Yeah.
more money is a byproduct, right? I think when people start just focusing on the money, I think they start making bad decisions. Um, and it gets a little bit more challenging. So, well, awesome. What's the website people can go and check out the agency?
It's createhealth.com.
Awesome. Well, everyone, go check that out. Thank you so much, Phil, for coming on the podcast. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, we just got to go back to the basics. And if you guys want to be able to really kind of see the things you might not be able to see in front of you, and you want to be surrounded by the best talent from all the agency owners all over the world, I want to invite all of you to go to the Digital Agency Elite .com. This is our exclusive mastermind just for agency owners that are going through a rapid scaling of their agency, and they want to get to a point where they have the opportunity to sell it one day or to exit in the things that they don't want to do anymore and have that freedom that we all really wanted. So make sure you go to digitalagencyelite.com, and until next time, have a swank day.